Welcome in. It is Big Ten Today on this Monday. We are presented by Gatorade, Dave Revs and Rafael Davis. It's been March for about a week and a half, but the true madness now is upon us, and I, for one, am pretty fired up.
I woke up and played my favorite song this morning, March Madness, to get the day going, because I am so excited to get this March Madness. This Big Ten tournament started. The season went exactly how we thought it would be. Look at Nebraska, number 3 seed in the Big Ten tournament. Northwestern's right there. Shout out to those guys for getting it done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at where those teams were picked. I think Nebraska was picked 13th. Yep. Northwestern was picked 8th. Again, they were the 2 seed last year, but no one really knew with the loss of Chase Audish. But certainly the jump that Nebraska's taken has been massive. It gets us to our big story, that Big Ten tourney bracket. We knew about Purdue and Illinois heading into yesterday as the top 2 seeds. And as Rafael said, Nebraska and Northwestern earned those final 2 double byes. Tourney gets underway Wednesday. Rutgers in Maryland, Penn State and Michigan to follow. Wisconsin, Indiana awaiting the winners there. Our coverage tips off Thursday. The first of our 2 days of quadruple headers. Minnesota, the home team, taking on Michigan State. Spartans could probably use a win in that one just to feel 100% sure they're in the dance. Ohio State and Iowa both need several wins in Minneapolis to get in the tourney picture. They get the evening session going on Thursday. All right, let's spend some time breaking down the top seeds. We're not necessarily going to go in order. We'll jump around a little bit. Let's start, though, with the number 1 seed and Purdue. And I do feel like, fairly, unfairly, however you want to say it, this season is going to be defined by what happens in the next tournament. And that's not to in any way minimize the Big Ten tournament. It's not to minimize the value of raising that trophy. But they raised that trophy last year, and that's not what people talked about when all was said and done. They talked about their first-round exit in the NCAA tourney. So what can this tournament mean to Purdue, given that we know it's not going to be the defining tournament?
I think it can mean everything to the locker room, because I agree with exactly what you're saying from the fans aspect, from the media aspect. But if I'm a player in Purdue's locker room, we have a chance to do something very special. We have the chance to win 4 Big Ten championship rings in the last 2 years, 2 outright Big Ten regular season championships, 2 back-to-back tournament championships. That is big time. 20 years from now, when you're arguing with your buddies that played in the Big Ten, you look at them and say, we dominated you guys for 2 years. Although we didn't have the March success that we wanted, we had Big Ten dominance, and that's what Purdue wants. Coach Painter, at the beginning of the season, he writes down, win the conference championship, win the Big Ten tournament championship, get into the tournament, and go to a Final Four. That second goal hasn't been accomplished, and I love how these guys still care, and they're not looking ahead over the Big Ten tournament.
Right, and I would tend to agree with you. I mean, I guess I just think part of it is just that that's the way athletes are wired. That's the way Matt Painter is wired. Certainly you know that better than I do, but in observing him here for this period of time that we've been on the air on the Big Ten Network, you know, he's been the head coach the entire time. You understand the fire that burns in him and that he certainly wants to carry that momentum forward. It'll be fascinating to see kind of, you know, what would happen were they not to win it, you know, kind of how they'd end up spinning it. But they've been the best team all year, and Purdue certainly heads to Minneapolis as the favorite, a team that has played for the title 4 of the last 7 times we finished up a Big Ten tourney. What about Michigan State? So they lost to Indiana yesterday, a game that came down to a final shot they just were not able to hit. They are not playing well here. I still think you look at all these brackets out there, and Michigan State's in every single bracket. Yeah. So I don't think they're in jeopardy of missing the tournament. But we're talking about a team that was top 5 at the beginning of the season. What does this tournament mean for them, and particularly a very difficult opener against a team that's going to have a home crowd behind them?
I think Michigan State, they need games. They need games to build some momentum, build some rhythm, and build some confidence. They need games so A.J. Hoggard, he can get going into March Madness. Jay Nagins needs a few games where he can make some shots, and they simply got to develop their inside presence. They've been rotating their center position around because that was the game against Indiana. Khalil Ware, Malik Renew, they just had their way inside. It didn't matter if it was Carson Cooper, Matty Sissoko, Xavier Booker. They've got to find someone inside that can provide some resistance, because Khalil Ware looked like a first-round lottery pick against Michigan State's
Which he
front line.
might be, by the way.
Yeah, he might be, and it might be because of that game. But I think for Michigan State, they got to find a way to keep Malik Hall going. I know he was tremendous for a stretch. had some lumps the last couple games. He's a guy that he's got to produce at a high level. Tyson Walker has started to figure it out over the last couple games, had a 30-piece against Indiana. Those two guys are going to be key. And then those big fellas, they've got to come to play. They've got to produce something. When you think about those three bigs, Kohler, Cooper, Sissoko, for the three of them in a full game, 40 minutes, you combine their numbers, it's got to at least give them a double-double.
It's weird that we're at this point in the season with Michigan State and we're still wondering about, like, what's the right way to approach it at the center position. I mean, it does kind of speak volumes about where they've been, and injuries have been a little bit of an issue with that, certainly with Jackson Kohler early in the year. But, yeah, no question. I mean, it's not a typical Michigan State team. Again, it looks like they're going to make the tournament. Like, I went on that bracket matrix this morning, which aggregates every single bracket that's out there. 108 brackets aggregated. They're in 108 of them. Like, they're gonna make it.
Yeah.
But are they gonna make any kind of a run? I don't know. And I think that this tournament could be a good launching pad for them to get a little confidence back with the way they finished. What do you make about Northwestern? So, as we said, they are the 4 seed. They have had virtually no success historically in this tournament. They've only made it to the semifinal one time. They are so banged up, and it was interesting. I did their game on Saturday night, and Chris Collins was saying, hey, that double bye does really matter for us just because we really want to play one fewer game. Like, if they feel like if they're going to have a chance to make a run at it, it has to be in a limited number of games just because of all the injuries they have. They really looked the part on Saturday night. I mean, I understand there's a lot of emotion in the building, Boo Booey senior night, all that stuff, but man, they looked as good as they've looked in quite some time.
Yeah, I normally don't really care about the double bye when it comes to getting it for a team, but for Northwestern, I think they need it. I think they deserve it for one part, but they're so banged up. They need guys like Ryan Langborg and that ankle to get healthy. Boo Booey, Brooks Barnheiser, they've just been playing a ton of minutes. They need some rest because in the tournament, you're going to need big game Boo. You're going to need Brooks Barnheiser to be that Swiss Army knife because in that game this weekend, they were tremendous. I mean, Brooks Barnheiser really got it going. I love how he's adapted to being guarded by a smaller defender, getting on that block, going to that right hand, being the guy that can distribute the ball. Ryan Langborg is making shots. Those three guys, when they come to play and they're hooked up, that puts Northwestern in any game. And then Nick Martinelli, what he can provide in the post with that non-traditional left-hand jump hook, when he's producing at a high level, he adds a toughness, a grit, and a rebounding presence to this team. Those 4 guys give them a real chance in the Big Ten tournament. But I agree with you. They needed that first game rest.
It is an amazing story to see where they have come these last 2 years. And again, I think we spend a lot of time trying to provide perspective. 24 conference wins the last 2 years. That equals their total from 1991 to 1999.
That's crazy.
24 wins. Like, it's
crazy.
remarkable.
That's cool.
When you try to give it historic context of how good a job Chris Collins has done and how much this program has turned around here in the last couple of years. What about Nebraska? They are a 3 seed. They've won 6 of their last 7. I do think it's fair to point out the 6 or 7 have not come against the best competition in the league, right? They had a very favorable schedule. In fact, Bart Torvik ranks it as the easiest schedule in the Big Ten. But that in no way minimizes, like you made the point off the top. This is a team that was picked for 13th place.
That's crazy.
In the Big Ten. And here they are now. They are playing for, they're a top 3 seed, and they've got a legitimate chance. And I think you look at like the way this team's put together and who's a team that can make a run and who's a team that gives people trouble. To me, it's Nebraska. I mean, they've got everything you could want, including a team that has defended really well in conference play.
Yeah, let's just start at their defense, because their defense in the second half against Michigan was tremendous. They just shut the water off for Michigan. You think Doug McDaniel in the first half of the basketball game, 17 points, 6 of 8 from the field. After the break, 0 points, 0-5 from the field. They just has an ability to shut your water off when they dig into you. Josiah Alec, Juwan Gary, they bring such a toughness to the squad because they has all this success as being a team, as having role definition. Because you think about it, first or second team Big Ten, you're going to struggle to pick which Nebraska player you want to throw on that second team. And that makes a lot of sense because this team is a full team on the road at Michigan, must-win situation. Tominaga goes off for 30, 5 of 8 from the three-point line. So many guys can beat you. They all defend. They all play hard. They all play their role. This is a team in the NCAA tournament. It's hard to scheme against them. You haven't seen the Keisei Tominaga in person. Juwan Gary is way tougher than he looks on film. I really like where Nebraska's headed.
I'm with you, and I think for exactly the same reasons. I'm with you. They are a consummate team, the great role definition, the variety of players who on any given night can be the guy who is the star, right? And that, to me, is like we talk about, Tominaga and Rank Mass, whatever. Bryce Williams leads them in double-figure games on the year, right? I mean, again, it's just so many different guys. And I just give a ton of credit to Fred Hoiberg. And you led with defense. Like, would you have thought 2 years ago that in summarizing a Nebraska team, you'd lead with defense?
Right, no way. I would have thought 2 years ago that those guys on that roster, they didn't care about coach. They didn't care about winning. They didn't commit to the winning aspect of basketball. Last season, guys like Derek Walker, Sam Griesel, and Bandemil, they committed on the defensive end. They brought a toughness. A guy like Derek Walker, he won't really be remembered for his numbers, but he remembered for setting the tone for Nebraska basketball. Will keep being the next 10, 15 years.
I agree 100%. And I really hope that those guys are taking some pride in what happened. Because it began last year, and the injuries were unfortunate, particularly Bandemil and Gary. They changed the way they played a little bit, and I thought were pretty successful down the stretch. But no doubt, the change in the mentality, the change in the composition, that started last season. Make it 3 straight Big Ten tournament championships for Iowa women's basketball. The Hawkeyes beat Nebraska 94-89 in overtime for their latest title yesterday. Caitlin Clark, 30 of her 34 points in the second half in overtime as Iowa overcame an 8-point deficit with just over 2 minutes to play in the second half to force the overtime. Our big stat brought to you by Gatorade. The 3 straight tourney titles for the Hawks matches the all-time Big Ten record held by several other schools. Maryland, the most recent to do it, a run that ended 7 years ago. Ohio State and Purdue, as you can see, the other 2 on the list. And that gets us to today's big interview. And as promised, we have the head coach of the Hawkeyes, Lisa Bluder, here with us. Coach, congratulations. Thanks for taking the time out during what I know is a really busy time. Look, I know all of these are special. You're not giving any of them back, but years from now, what will you remember most about this particular tourney run?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dave. I think it definitely was the way that we were down 8 with 2.5 minutes, and our team just kept believing and kept fighting down to the last second of that game. And so, Nebraska's a really good basketball team and deserves a really great seed in the NCAA tournament. But just the fortitude of our players yesterday was really something that was amazing.
Yeah, take me inside that mindset. So I don't know if you're a big metrics person or not, but the metrics said you had a win probability of less than 1% at that point. Now, the one thing I would say is I don't think the algorithm accounts for Caitlin Clark. Like, I don't think they factored her greatness into that. But still, like, at that moment, like what's the message? What are you thinking? Kind of what gave your team the ability to come back from something so mathematically improbable as this?
Yeah, you're right. They don't factor in Caitlin Clark, but a lot of people have told me about that 1% opportunity to win that game. And I just shake my head because they don't know about Caitlin. They don't understand this team and how we believe in each other so much. And I mean, honestly, that wasn't our thought. Like when we got down 8 and actually they had the ball at that point, we got to stop. Caitlin comes out, hits a 3. We're down 5 now with 2.5. And to me, it's a whole new game at that point. We call a timeout. And during that timeout, we're just talking about, let's get a stop. Let's get a stop. And that's exactly what we did. Gabby Marshall's defense down the line was absolutely incredible.
That block was amazing. Big picture on this tournament before we leave yesterday and kind of move on to some other topics. When you see the buzz around this tournament this week, and like, let's just be honest, most of it is, or much of it is around your team. I don't want to say most of it, but a significant percentage is about you guys, is about Caitlin. But this league has elevated too, and there's just so much excitement. When you see all of that, and you think about the journey that you've been on coaching this game for 40 years, what goes through your mind?
First of all, Dave, I got to go back to that block because I'm telling you, Gabby Marshall, how many times do people block a shot and it goes out of bounds and it's still the other team's ball?
Yes.
But she blocked the shot and got it, and that gave us that possession. That was just an amazing play. So I got to go back to that because I know you showed the clip. But, the excitement around our program, and I honestly, the Big Ten Network has been so good for our conference and for us. We were playing really good basketball for a lot of years and nobody really knew about us. But the Big Ten Network really exposed the quality of the game. And so I really credit television exposure and the Big Ten Network just being in front of everybody else and getting a national, television, a national station. So the Hawkeye fans are just elevated it to another level as well. Just their support. I mean, when we're selling out the Target Center, in addition to Carver Hawkeye Arena, in addition to getting 56,000 people in Kinnick Stadium at the beginning of the year, there's something special going on, and people are falling in love with this team. They're falling in love with the quality of play, the style of play, Caitlin Clark, of course, but also Big Ten women's basketball. It is at an all-time high. We have so many quality teams in this league, and that's what makes it exciting. Nobody likes it when it's a one-horse show. And this league has just elevated itself, and that's what makes it so fun to go out and play every night.
No doubt. And as everyone watching probably knows, it was actually Ohio State, which, of course, won the regular season in the Big Ten. We've seen Indiana have some great teams. So it has not solely been Iowa, but Caitlin has elevated it, and your team has elevated it here in recent years. And I know you're not done coaching her, and you hope you get 6 more games coaching her here. But I do want to reflect a little bit with you, just because I may not have the chance to talk to you about her again. She is so immensely talented, but what other traits does she have that you think have made her into the player that she is?
Well, again, like you said, she can do things that other people can't do. There's nobody in the country that shoots like Caitlin does.
Right. There's
nobody that has that range. And then when you add to it her passing ability and that she leads the country in assists, and people they forget about that. And that's so unfair because her passing, her vision of the court is incredible. Here she is getting a steal at the end of the game. It's not always known for her defense, but as a pretty darn good steal she got at the end of that game. But it's also her personality. It's her infectious passion for the game, her will to win, her competitiveness that, people admire that. And it doesn't hurt now, being in State Farm commercials and having these NIL deals where people see her outside of the basketball court and get to see her personality and how fun that is.
We had her on last week and she was unbelievable. And one of the things I asked her was was there a moment where she realized, like, hey, this isn't normal and this has changed? And so I kind of want to ask you the same question. So she is, for those who don't follow women's basketball recruiting, I mean, she was a top 5 recruit. She's a 5-star player. Everyone knew she was going to be really good. But at what point did you kind of come to realize, wow, she is a transformational player? Like, this is different than some of the other great players that you've had, and you have had great players. But this is different. I think we all acknowledge this is different. So when did you know it was different?
Yeah, I mean, we knew she was a great player coming out of high school. Everybody knew that. Right. That's why she's been recruited across the country. You always think, this player is going to be really great, but nobody, and I don't care, I wish I could say, oh yeah, I knew she was going to be this great. Nobody can ever, look into a crystal ball and see that. I think I recognized it her freshman year in the NCAA tournament when we beat Kentucky to go to the Sweet 16. Then after that, faced UConn. And she was named the National Co-Freshman of the Year along with Paige Beckers. To me, that's when it really occurred to me that this is something special.
Yeah, and of course, Paige Beckers was the player who maybe had the most hype coming out of high school, and obviously, unfortunately, has battled a lot of injuries, but she was going to UConn and kind of went to that traditional powerhouse program. Caitlin went to a really, really, really good program, but stayed home, right? And so that was part of the difference, and maybe not the same hype coming out. It's been incredible to be along on this ride. And one of the things that I think is really special, and I'm interested in your perspective on this, is that she is a home state kid. And for you, someone who went to high school in Iowa, went to college in Iowa. You've had 3 coaching jobs. They've all been in Iowa. I mean, Iowa is in your blood too. What's it been like to see the way the state has rallied around her and the way that it has brought attention to your state?
Yeah, you're right. We're both Iowa girls for sure, and a lot of them on our staff as well. But it just goes to show you that you don't have to go to one of those storied programs to have the success that you want if you believe in yourself. If you find the right program, that is going to, highlight your skills, and you can do it wearing your home state uniform and have this kind of amazing fan support. I mean, Iowans love Caitlin Clark. They love our team. It's not just Caitlin Clark. They love our team.
Right.
So it's been a journey, and I love sharing it with these Iowa Hawkeye fans.
All right, well, Coach, I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and we look forward to watching the Hawkeyes here as you guys try to make a run to the national championship. Lisa Bluder, thanks a lot. Congratulations to Penn State, which captured the Big Ten Wrestling Championship yesterday. Nittany Lions won the team race, a school record 170.5 points. 5 Penn State wrestlers won individual conference title. It marks the school's 8th Big Ten championship, 2nd straight. They next head to the NCAA championships in Kansas City, March 21st through the 23rd. Back to hoops, and don't miss our coverage. The 2024 TIAA Big Ten Men's Basketball Tournament live from Minneapolis Thursday and Friday. The Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app, we have wall-to-wall coverage coming up both days. Rafael and I will be there along with a cast of thousands, or a cast of maybe a half dozen. I don't know. 1,000 seems like a slight exaggeration. We're not going to see Illinois until Friday. Illinois is the number 2 seed. They played against an Iowa team that really needed a win yesterday. They had to go on the road. We know how hard it is to win on the road in the Big Ten. You're at like 30% road wins this year, right? And then you get a team that's super motivated. It also happens to be pretty good in Iowa.
Yes.
They never led in the game. And Illinois, I don't remember saying this earlier this year, they led with their defense.
Yes.
I mean, their defense was great against a high-powered team, one of the better offensive teams, not just in our league, but in the country. And that to me was different, and that to me made me look at them a little differently heading into this tournament.
That's the defense that Illinois should be able to play that I believe that makes them a Final Four team. They went to Iowa City, one of the best offenses in the country. Payne Sanford, one of the best players in the country. Tony Perkins, he can score at will. They held Iowa to 61 points and held them 35% from the field because they dug in. And I got to give a shout out to Terrence Shannon Jr. He was special defensively, took Tony Perkins out of the basketball game, made him unplayable at times. Tony Perkins being one of the better guards in the Big Ten. He goes 1 for 10 from the field, 2 points in the game. Terrence Shannon and that Illinois defense, that was just special.
They were fabulous.
Yep.
And if that is who they can be, and, it was interesting listening to Brad Underwood afterward. He kind of said, hey, we had some rough practices. We went after them.
I bet.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's not a stretch of the imagination, right? You don't have to be a creative thinker to visualize what that might have looked like.
That's funny.
But they have the talent. They have the individual talent, right?
Yes.
I mean, Coleman Hawkins
Can guard 1 through 5.
built to be a great defender. Terrence Shannon is unbelievable.
Yes.
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, I'm looking at them different. The last 2 tournaments, they haven't won a game. Actually, the last 2 Big Ten tournaments. They're going to get a desperate team, whether it's Iowa or Ohio State.
Yes.
But if they play like that, they're going to give everyone all they can handle
sure.
in Minneapolis and going forward. All right, what about Wisconsin? They've lost 8 of their last 11 coming in. It feels to me like they need a good tournament.
Yes.
Right? They need something positive to happen here. How do you see the Badgers coming in?
Wisconsin was one of those teams where I looked at them and I said, maybe they don't want a double bye. They want as many games as they could play to get some confidence, to gain some rhythm, especially on the defensive end. Wisconsin's a team that can score the ball. You see going to Purdue, A.J. Stewart gets him 17. Tyler Wall goes 17 to 10. John Blackwell, the freshman, should be on the freshman team this season. He gets 18. He goes off, but Steven Crow doesn't show up. Chucky Hepburn doesn't show up. Those guys need to produce offensively, but defensively, Wisconsin just simply got to guard their yard. They got to be a team that can keep guys in front, that don't get beat off the dribble, that can go and rebound the basketball. I think if Wisconsin can figure it out defensively, can figure it out rebounding, I think the Big Ten tournament can really help them, can propel them in March Madness. I still think they can go win some games.
I'm with you. They get either Rutgers or Maryland in that first game.
That bad.
They need that game, right? They're going to need something positive. Then they get Northwestern. We talked about Northwestern's really good, but Northwestern's also banged up.
Exactly.
Right?
And they need that Maryland game or that Rutgers game just to try and beat that type of talent. They need to show themselves that in a neutral site, they can beat NCAA athleticism. And that's what Maryland and Rutgers both provide. They struggle offensively, but on defense and athletically, they're up there with the best of the country.
Those are two of the three teams they've beaten since this slump started back on February 1st. So, again, you go into a game against a team thinking, okay, we've had some success against these guys recently, and maybe you can build on that. A team that has had some success recently is Indiana.
Yes, they've been balling.
I mean, how about the Hoosiers now? We were talking about it from Michigan State's perspective, but Indiana was great yesterday at home. They've won 4 straight games now, and several of them have come against good teams. Here's a team, they essentially have to win this tournament to make it to the NCAA. I mean, the net rating, they're just way down. Like, they're out of the conversation right now. But I don't think it's a crazy stretch of the imagination to think that they could, or certainly at least could make a run at it.
I mean, this is the Khalil Ware that they thought they were getting. 3 of the last 4 games, he's been averaging over 25 points. And in the game he didn't, he had 15 rebounds in the game, dominated the glass. He's a guy that you can lean on at this point in the season. He's been playing over 37 minutes a game in all 4 of the last victories. He's just been dominant down low, especially off of that ball screen where he and Trey Galloway rolling to the basket, being the lob threat, being the defensive rim protector. Mackenzie Mbako is the freshman now that all the Hoosier fans expected they will be getting. He's knocking down shots from deep. He's driving to the basket. He's in tune on the defensive end. This Hoosier squad has committed defensively now. They switched up some things offensively with Trey Galloway. I hope he can get back for the Big Ten tournament. But now with the ball in his hands, 3 of the last 6 games, he's had 11-plus assists. That is big time to go along with what Khalil Ware is doing. And now they're playing that IU defense from the 2 seasons ago. They could win some games, and it won't be surprising.
Had a big ice pack on his knee, Galloway did, in the second half yesterday. So that is a huge question mark because he's been a big part of what they've done. That being said, they won in the second half without him. And as you said, Khalil Ware, I mean, when you talk about guys playing great, non-Zach Edey edition, right?
He's been balling.
No, he's been great. 25 or more, 3 of the last 4 games. A team that did not play well yesterday is Iowa. We talked about it in the context of Illinois, but I mean, Iowa was in desperation mode. They never led in the game. Now they've got a ton of work to do. They're playing Ohio State, who also would need a really great run here in the Big Ten tournament. We have seen Iowa make runs in this tournament. They're one of those teams that, hey, has won 4 games in 4 days. What would it take for this team to do something similar?
They got to make some shots. Iowa's a team, they can go and win 4 games in 4 days because of their style of play. They run up and down. Those guys aren't going to get tired. They're used to running up and down, playing games, and they love to shoot threes. But this is a tournament where you got to come to Minneapolis, and that jumper's got to travel with them. Josh Dix, he's got to be productive from deep. Peyton Sanford's got to be productive. Tony Perkins has got to have some of the best games of his career. This is kind of a must-win or go-home situation for Iowa. Their back's against the wall. I trust the leadership in the locker room to rebound from that Illinois game, go out against Ohio State, defend at a high level, but offensively, no quick shots, no turnovers, take care of the basketball, and get yourselves into something in half court.
The issue is if you beat Ohio State, you play Illinois again.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, I mean, it is challenging in that sense. Just Illinois beaten them twice now in what, like 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Now, there's the old adage, it's hard to beat a team 3 times, and maybe but it just has looked like, Illinois has clearly been the better team in that matchup. We'll see whether Iowa can make a run here. Let's talk a little bit about Minnesota. I would think Iowa will have some fans there supporting them. Minnesota's going to have a ton of fans.
Yes.
They get Michigan State here. The last 2 games for Minnesota have been head-scratchers for me because I felt like they had a lot on the line against Indiana at home, and they played really poorly. And then I had that game, as I mentioned, we were talking in the context of Northwestern. I had them on Saturday night. Ben Johnson felt like they were in a really good spot. again, ton of emotion. I get all of that, but man, they played poorly. I mean, they just weren't ready to go for the second straight game. This is a huge game for them. Again, it's going to take something miraculous. I mean, they may need to win the whole thing. But what are you watching here from Minnesota as they try to build what could be a solid NIT resume?
I want to see Elijah Hawkins control the basketball game. Elijah Hawkins is the floor setter, the floor general, sets the tone on both ends of the basketball floor. And there's been times this season where he hasn't controlled the game. And I know against Northwestern, they wanted to feed the basketball inside to Dawson Garcia, and he was great, 30-plus points in the basketball game. But that bogged down their offense. You look at Mike Mitchell, Cam Christie, they didn't even get enough shot attempts to be productive in the basketball game. And with Minnesota, when they're at their best offensively, Elijah Hawkins is spraying the basketball around the floor. He's having 8+ assists in the basketball game. Mike Mitchell is knocking down threes. Cam Christie's going. It's a collective effort. They're on a team that's going to go to one guy, and that guy's going to dominate the win category. Because you look at Dawson Garcia, every game this season where he scored 30-plus points, they've lost that game. So it's a thing where all of those guys have got to be in tune offensively because you know what their front court is going to bring. You think of Pharrell Payne, Dawson Garcia on the glass, Parker Fox. They're going to bring that energy, but it's going to be offensively. They're going to have to share the wealth and be productive.
He was unstoppable.
Yes, he was.
On Saturday night. I mean, he was really, really good. But I agree 100% with your point. I will say this. In talking to Ben Johnson, they really want to play in the NIT. They would love the opportunity to play in the NIT because if you look at their roster, their whole team can come back.
Man, they could be really good.
I mean, everyone who plays any kind of minutes could be back. And if they could get a nice NIT run, you look at what Wisconsin did, they built on it this year. I think the Gophers could absolutely be a tourney team a season from now. I do want to wrap up. We've kind of gone through all the top 10 other than Ohio State. They are really playing well. I mean, here's a team now. They've won 4 straight. They've won 5 of 6. They annihilated Rutgers in the second half yesterday, a place that's not easy to play. Jake Diebler's got this thing going. What stood out as you've watched the transformation in the Buckeyes?
It's been their defense. And I know Rutgers is already a little bit offensively challenged, bit, just a tiny bit.
You get a head start if you have a good defense playing against this Rutgers team. It'll be different a year from now.
Yes, 100%. I agree with that. I think Rutgers will be really good next season. But
currently composed Rutgers team isn't great offense.
No, but Ohio State, I think they've dug in defensively. You think about going on the road to a tough environment. They got it done with their defense in that second half. They all dug in, decided to defend, decided to be on the string. Felix Akpara has become one of the better rim protectors in the Big Ten. And now I love the fact that Coach Diebler's playing more guys. You've seen him bench Roddy Gale, send him to the bench, start Dale Bonner. You see Scotty Middleton playing more, Devin Royals playing more. Even a guy like Tayson Chapman is playing more. They had 10 guys score in the basketball game. 9 of those guys played 10-plus minutes. And what that brings is, if you're not playing hard, you got a replacement that's going to come in the game. So now those guys are out there giving maximum effort on both ends of the floor. They're not worried about their offense. They understand that they can win games through their defense. And then when you add that on top of that 3-guard presence with Bruce Thornton, Roddy Gale, Jamison Battle, those 3 guys put you in any game to go along with road definition and tough defense. Ohio State really has a chance to go from this 10 seed, win a few games, and they could actually go dancing.
They could. I mean, it's not totally out of the question. I think Torvik had him at 10% to getting that large this morning. So you got to make a big run. Right? That's what it's going to be about. But that defense helps you. And it's crazy to think in conference play, they were 13th in defensive efficiency when they made this change. They're 3rd since.
That's crazy.
So they have really turned it around. We are moving on to the semis of the Big Ten men's hockey tournament after an action-packed weekend. 7th seed Ohio State was the biggest story, upsetting 2nd-seeded Wisconsin 2-1 in Madison. 3rd seed Minnesota swept its series with the 6th seed Penn State, while the 4th seed Michigan did the same against the 5th seed Notre Dame. Paul Caponegri is here. He called that series in Minneapolis. We'll get to that in a moment. But the big story was Ohio State. And look, anyone who watches hockey is certainly well aware the puck can bounce in some mysterious ways. A 3-game series or a best-of-3 series is supposed to eliminate some of that. So Ohio State just played the better hockey over the weekend. What happened here? How did they knock off the Badgers?
They really did, and I think they kind of took the Wisconsin playbook and put it on them. They played hard. They played fast. They didn't give Wisconsin a lot of time with the puck. And Wisconsin's a really good team, but they're not a high-end skill team. So if you take away their time and space, that eliminates even more of that. And then they got a power play goal in each game. And Wisconsin's the number 1 power play in the country, or was going in. But Ohio State was able to get 1 in each game. And they also, in the 2 games they won, they got the lead early in the game. And I just think when you're looking to get an upset, you score that first goal, it makes you feel better. And then, of course, the cliche in hockey, the goaltending was great. Logan Turnus played the first game. They've been going to the freshman in the second game of regular season. I thought it was a great move because say you win that second game, great. The freshmen did it. They did it. But if you don't, you get to go back to the guy that won the first game. He's fresh for that third game, and it looked like it turned out nice for the Buckeyes.
I would say it turned out really well for them. A team that had won 4 road games all year. They win 2.
And they won 4 out of 5 against Wisconsin here at the end of the year. So clearly they started playing better. They had 15 new guys this year. You know, it does take time. Obviously, you want to be doing it earlier, but they're playing their best at the right time of year.
I do want to ask you quickly about the Badgers before we move on. There's been an incredible story, right? First year in Mike Hastings, they get to number 1 in the country. I mean, there's some really positive stuff that's happened. They're going to make the NCAA tournament. Yes. But should Badgers fans be concerned at all about how viable they are going forward here?
Concerned, of course, because anytime you lose at home, you know, to the bottom team in the league, and you're not scoring the goals and things, you know, they've only won 4 of their last 9 games. But there is precedent. Last year, Penn State lost in the first round to Ohio State, and they had to wait 3 weeks to play a game. And they ended up 1 goal away, losing to overtime to Michigan from the Frozen Four. So maybe it's a good time for them to regroup. I'm sure he doesn't want 3 weeks, Mike Hastings.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's almost like you get to it'll be a completely new season for them, and they can put this behind them.
Don't want to oversimplify it. They got to score a little more, right?
Gotta
Just
score.
12 goals in the last 5 games. Got to figure out a way.
simple.
As great as they've been defensively, got to figure out a way to put the puck in the net. The other 2 series went more according to plan. You were in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
The Gophers did sweep Penn State. It was not easy, though.
No, the first game was...
Game 2 wasn't, yes.
Game 2, Penn State deserved a better fate. They got a couple unlucky breaks on an offside call and then a goal puck that literally was an inch from going over the line. But you give credit for Minnesota. They did not play well, but they found a way at the end. It was a 2-2 game late in the third period. They got 1 chance, and they scored on it. And it's like kind of hockey is just crazy like that. They were outshot 2-1 in the game by Penn State, but Minnesota found a way, and that's what good teams do. Justin Close was fantastic in net, and you're going to need those different kind of games to win. And if you can find a way to win an ugly one like that, it bodes well for you in the future. But obviously, they have to play better against Michigan.
And playing well, just 4 losses this calendar year. Michigan swept Notre Dame in Ann Arbor. 2 come-from-behind wins for them. What could those wins and the nature of those wins do for this Michigan team? I
mean, you almost don't give them too much confidence because I feel like they do their best when they're doubted. Okay. You know, they have the talent, but everyone, you know, the voters are down on them. They just want to see, it's almost like they want to see Michigan not do well, but they stepped up. Both games trailed at times. Saturday's game went back and forth. But what I love is their big players came at the right time. Gavin Brindley scored the game-winning goal Saturday. Jake Baraszkiewicz in net has been he's been a good goalie, but he hasn't won a game, I'd say. He made some great saves late in that game against Notre Dame, and it was a terrific atmosphere at Yost. But they found a way to win, and now they're looking in a really good spot in the Big Ten tournament, but also now setting themselves up for an at-large bid at least in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, to your point, this is a team that's never out of it. They're second in the nation in goals. They've
find a way.
Won 5 of 6, so playing pretty well here. Okay, let's get to the semifinals. Yep. And I want to clarify to everyone, the semifinals just 1 game.
1 game, right? One-shot deal.
Okay, and those will be on the Big Ten Network Saturday night. I know you'll be in studio for those. Let's start with Ohio State and Michigan State. Sure. Ohio State trying to continue this magic. Michigan State, as we know, won the Big Ten for the first time ever. They obviously get home ice here. What are you watching?
Can Ohio State continue this role? I think they're going to be excited. It's just 1 game, right? Yeah. 1 good game is all it takes. You don't have to look at it like, we got to win 2 out of 3 again. The same remedy for them. Great goaltending and get off to a good start. And Michigan State didn't play last week. You never know how a team is going to come out. They're going to be juiced up. It's their first big home ice game in playoffs. The place is sold. I was sold out, and I don't know how quickly, but the place is going to be rocking. So for Ohio State, it's key to get off to a good start, get their goaltending. They did just beat them in East Lansing 6-2.
Yeah.
It was not a 3-2 save, 50 saves against. They outplayed them that game. So another kind of thing for them to go back on and say, hey, we just did this. It's one more shot. Let's do it. So it's not going to be as easy, I think, as maybe people might think from the outside.
Right. I do think psychology is so important in sports. And when you know,
huge.
Hey, not just that they beat them, because they lost the 2 games in Columbus, but that they beat them in East Lansing.
There.
Yeah.
And decisively.
Yes.
So
yes.
it's like, okay, confident, but okay, don't think it'll be easy in any stretch.
Right.
But I think they'll know that.
Let's talk about Michigan and Minnesota pretty quickly here. This typically, the last couple of years, has been the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah.
Now it's a semifinal. Give us the lowdown here.
Fast, skilled, awesome hockey. It's a good enough matchup to be a Big Ten championship matchup, a Frozen Four matchup.
Right.
Just tons of talent. There's first-round picks all over the ice. They split a series just 2 weeks ago. Minnesota won decisively Friday, and then Michigan had a big lead, lost it, but then came back, won in overtime. So can Michigan bring what they brought that Saturday game? If they bring what they did Friday night, Minnesota will roll them. But, Minnesota's kind of had a topsy-turvy season. That's why they're not in the top 5 this year, is because it's kind of gone up and down, even in game. Saturday's game, they played a great first period, we're up 2-0, but then it just went away, and Penn State dominated the other 2. So it's really hard to predict what you're going to get. All I know is you got top-end skill, skating, and speed. It's just going to be a really exciting game. And I would think Marietta should be packed with 10,000 people, and we'll be rocking. And just to get one more thing is, Michigan went in there twice now and won the Big Ten championship. So it's built a good rivalry, and those Minnesota fans are going to be very hungry, and I would assume the players, to get some revenge.
I think it's just really cool that, these are the 2 winningest programs in the history of college hockey, and they're playing in a Big Ten semifinal. It just speaks to the
parity. I love that we're
absolutely.
It.
Okay, so real quick, looking ahead to the NCAA tourney. So just remind people, there's really no subjectivity to this, right?
All computer system,
Okay.
like the old BCS system with football,
yes.
rates on quality of wins, road wins, all that kind of stuff.
And 4 Big Ten teams will be in right now.
Yes.
Okay.
And it looks really good. I will never jinx it because it happened to Minnesota once, but Michigan's the one team that doesn't have 100%. They're 99.4, it said, with all the computer probabilities.
Okay.
But about 2018, Minnesota was at that point.
Right.
And all the things went, well, the 1 out of 20,000 chances happened. So
we were
nothing's
just talking
for sure yet.
We were just talking about with Lisa Bluder that
Yep.
Nebraska had a 99.1% chance to win the women's tournament championship game yesterday and didn't win it. So
it's not 100. It's not 100.
Yes, you don't mess around with the percentages. And again, the only way Ohio State can get in is winning.
Right. All right.
Yeah.
So people away from the Big Ten are nervous about Ohio State now,
Right.
which I don't think they had that in there.
Right. All right, Cappy,
Bingo
we'll see you
card.
in studio, both semifinals on our air Saturday, and then the following Saturday,
Big Ten
it's the Big Ten
championship.
championship.
Yes.
All right, great stuff, Cappy. Big honor for Purdue's big man, Zach Edey's number 15, now hanging from the rafters at Mackey Arena. Coach Matt Painter made the announcement during Senior Day festivities yesterday. Edey needs just 41 points to surpass Rick Mount as the school's all-time leading scorer. He's at 2,282 and counting, which puts him 1,273 ahead of the man sitting next to me.
A lot of buckets.
Well, yeah, but over 1,000 points.
I got there, yeah. You're
we
right,
talk
you're right.
about
I
you
got
as
there.
a defender.
You're right.
You're
right. That's a
pretty
good point. That's a really good point. I like that.
1,000-point
I like
scorer in the
that.
Big Ten. Okay, we're going to talk about the players to watch in the Big Ten tourney, and we have to start with Zach Edey.
Yeah, you have to, because it's Big Ten championship week. You got to start with the best player in the league, Zach Edey. He's got to come out and be dominant and set the tone of this tournament from day one and let everyone else know in the tournament that Purdue is here to win this thing, not just compete. I'm really looking forward to Zach Edey, not just for himself, but what he provides for his teammates, because he's got to be dominant to be able to give Fletcher Lawyer those looks, to be able to keep Fletcher Lawyer in some rhythm.
And again, this is the precursor to what comes next, and I think will be a lot of the way that Zach Edey's remembered, though he will be remembered as one of the all-time great players in Purdue history, no question, no matter what happens. Who else are you watching in Minneapolis?
Next player I'm looking at is Boo Buie, and you need big game Boo for the Big Ten tournament. Like I said, you need your best players to play well when it's championship time, and Boo Buie sets the table for not just himself for Northwestern, but for all of the other guys. He's got to be effective sharing the basketball, find ways to get Ryan Langborg in tune in the basketball game, keep Brooks Barnheiser going, give confidence to Luke Hunger and Blake Preston, because if Blake Preston is able to have the same type of first halves that he had in their last game, Northwestern could be cooking with gas. So I'm looking forward to see Boo Buie keeping that going.
Where did that come from? He had 8 points in the first half. He had 9 the entire calendar year.
He was catching alley-oops, dunking it in, dunking on people. It was big time.
All right, give me a couple more.
I'm looking at Marcus Domask, and that's offensively, because now we know in Illinois they can do defensively. The games are going to get shorter in the sense of possessions are going to shrink. It's going to be a half-court basketball game. There's no better scorer from the perimeter than Marcus Domask in the half court.
I'd be interested to see if he makes the all-conference team tomorrow. Those will be announced here on Big Ten Today. Got time for one more?
Tyson Walker, and a lot of people have been sleeping on my guy Tyson Walker. I hope he makes second team All Big Ten. He was huge at Indiana, 30 points in the basketball game. They need Tyson Walker to be at his best right now. Get Malik Hall going. Get A.J. Hogarth going. It's tournament season. Michigan State could be a 10 seed in the March Madness that could go to a Final Four.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's when you least expect it, right? But, man, I think they need to win. Like, I get the metrics like them, but I don't think you want to tempt the committee. You need to win that game against Minnesota. Again, Big Ten Today, tomorrow. Announce the all-conference team. See you then.